everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane over at Blue Box 29. We are here with a brand new week 3 of our first summer month. So we are in the month of June. Summer is all about our challenges, our season of fire, and revealing our own power. It's going to carry themes of transformation, divine conflict, and heroic trials, where passion burns bright, destinies collide, and truth can no longer remain hidden. Our emotions are going to intensify into courage, ambition, defiance, and resolve. Summer demands action and sacrifice, asking us to face trials, wield power wisely, and forge identity through endurance, leadership, and choice beneath the unrelenting light. So June is all about our call to adventure, departure, our tests and ordeals, allies and enemies, transformation, return and wisdom, and identity being forged right away in our first summer month. So June is the month of heroes and quests, and it is the archetype of the Pathfinder. So while we have had the tested hero in a previous month, this month is all about heroes and quests. So not necessarily talking about every single trial that a hero can go through, but these are a little bit more of the fun side of the quests and everything like that. Week 1 gave us all of the stuff we had with the departure, while week 2 gave us some of the ordeals, some of those big ordeals with the dragon, the sea, the ascent, the sunstrike. And now week 3, we are in the transformation. So this week is all about the transformation, and we started off right away with the wound. So we ended yesterday with the ally. We got to meet Robin Hood finally. And today we are now transforming. We are at the wound. Our theme is injury as invitation. So our lesson is that pain reshapes purpose. Our 4 stories, we're going to hear that through today, is Greek, Norse, Native, and Hindu. And we are going to think about what marked me forever. So what marked me forever? We're going to touch a scar, a symbol, or a remembered place on our body with deliberate attention. So we are going to touch a place in our body with deliberate attention to that place, what it symbolizes, the scar, whatever it may come from. And we are going to think about our wounds today and think of injury as an invitation. So what has marked me forever? And then how has that pain reshaped our purpose? So with that today, I hope you enjoy these 4 stories and the kickoff of our week 3, the transformation of our hero and quest month. And then my final thought is to acknowledge the wound that reshaped your direction and let it stand as a source of clarity rather than loss. So with that, I'll let you guys enjoy the stories, and I will see you tomorrow. See ya. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1, Achilles and the Heel of Destiny. Long before the walls of Troy echoed with the clash of bronze and the cries of warriors, a child was born whose name would travel farther than any king's. Achilles was a son of Peleus, immortal ruler, and Thetis, a sea nymph whose beauty and power were known throughout the world. From the moment he entered life, prophecies surrounded him. Some foretold glory, others foretold sorrow. His mother listened carefully to these warnings and feared that greatness would eventually draw her son toward an early death. Seeking to protect him, Thetis searched for a way to shield him from the fate she sensed approaching. According to one of the most enduring traditions, she carried the infant to the river Styx, the sacred river that flowed through the shadowed realms beyond the world of the living. Holding him securely by one heel, she lowered him into the dark waters. The river touched his skin and granted protection wherever its waters flowed, but the heel by which she held him remained untouched. Though no one knew it at the time, a small vulnerability remained hidden beneath the protection that covered the rest of his body. Years passed, and Achilles grew into a warrior unlike any other. He trained beneath wise teachers and learned the arts of combat, leadership, and endurance. His speed astonished those who watched him. His strength seemed almost supernatural. The stories of his skill spread throughout Greece, and when the call came to join the expedition against Troy, Achilles sailed with the Greek forces across the sea toward a conflict that would define an age. The war lasted many years. During that time, Achilles became the most feared warrior on the battlefield. Enemies scattered before him, and allies celebrated his victories. Yet the old storytellers rarely focused only on his strength. They also described his anger, grief, pride, and heartbreak. When his beloved companion, Patroclus, fell in battle, sorrow transformed him. The warrior, who had once fought for honor, now fought through grief. His victories became greater, but so did the burdens he carried within himself. As the war neared its conclusion, fate finally reached the hero who had seemed untouchable. In later tellings of the myth, Paris, aided by divine forces, released an arrow that struck the one place left vulnerable since infancy. The wound itself was small compared to the countless injuries suffered by other warriors, yet it reached the single place where protection had never existed. The greatest champion of Greece fell not because he lacked strength, but because even the strongest among mortals possess a weakness that cannot be escaped forever. For generations, listeners remembered Achilles because his story revealed something deeper than military glory. The Greeks understood that every person carries both strength and vulnerability. Greatness does not require perfection, and courage does not erase weakness. Instead, our vulnerabilities become part of who we are, shaping our choices and reminding us that even heroes remain human. Achilles' wound became a symbol of that truth, teaching that the places where we are vulnerable often influence our destinies, just as much as the places where we are strong. Story 2, Tyr and the Hand Given to the Wolf. In the ancient days when the gods of Asgard watched over the 9 worlds, a shadow grew among them in the form of a wolf named Fenrir. Born of powerful and dangerous forces, the wolf seemed harmless when young, yet each passing year revealed greater strength within him. His jaws grew wider, his body larger, and his power more frightening. The gods had heard prophecies concerning the future and knew that Fenrir would one day play a terrible role in Ragnarok, the final battle destined to shake the cosmos. At first, they hoped the danger could be managed. They forged mighty chains and challenged Fenrir to break them as a test of strength. The wolf eagerly accepted. One chain shattered, then another. Each restraint that the gods crafted proved incapable of holding him. Fenrir laughed at their efforts, growing more confident with every success. Meanwhile, concern spread through Asgard. If the wolf could already break such powerful bonds, what would happen when he reached his full strength? The gods eventually sought help from the master craftsman who created a magical binding called Gleipnir. Unlike the heavy chain forged before it, Gleipnir appeared thin and harmless. It resembled a simple ribbon more than a prison. Yet hidden within it was a strength greater than iron. When the gods brought the binding before Fenrir, the wolf immediately sensed that something was different. He agreed to test it, if only if one of the gods would place a hand within his mouth as a guarantee that no trickery was involved. The request silenced the gathering. Each god understood the danger. If Fenrir realized he had been deceived, the hand placed between his teeth would almost certainly be lost. One after another, the gods hesitated. None wished to accept the risk. Only Tyr stepped forward. Known for his courage and sense of duty, he understood exactly what might happen. Yet he also understood what would happen if no one acted. Without hesitation, he placed his hand between the wolf's jaw and allowed the binding to be secured. When Fenrir struggled, he discovered that the ribbon would not break. Rage filled him as he realized the gods had outwitted him. In a burst of fury, he snapped his jaws shut. Tyr lost his hand instantly. The wound could never be healed, and the sacrifice could never be undone. Yet Norse storytellers remembered Tyr not only with pity, but with admiration. His injury became evidence of his character rather than his defeat. He had willingly accepted pain to protect others, while many heroes gained glory through victory. Tyr gained honor through sacrifice. The missing hand served as a permanent reminder that courage is often measured not by what we conquer, but by what we are willing to give up for the sake of those around us. For centuries, his story endured because it spoke to a truth recognized across cultures. Some wounds change the course of a life forever, yet those wounds can become marks of loyalty, responsibility, and purpose. Tyr's sacrifice teaches that pain does not always diminish a person. Sometimes it reveals the strength that was hidden within them all along. Story 3, Redhorn in the Scar of the Thunderbirds. Among the stories told by the Ho-Chunk people of the North American woodlands and the prairies, few heroes were more celebrated than Redhorn. His adventures carried him across the earth into contests with powerful beings and through challenges that tested not only his strength, but his endurance and character. Like many great heroes found throughout the world's traditions, Redhorn was not remembered because he lived without hardship. He was remembered because hardship transformed him into something greater than he had been before. In the days when spirits, animals, and humans moved more freely between worlds, dangerous beings threatened both villages and travelers. Giants roamed distant lands, powerful spirits guarded sacred places, and supernatural forces often intervened in human affairs. Redhorn possessed unusual gifts and courage, but courage alone did not guarantee safety. The old stories repeatedly placed him in situations where confidence must be matched with wisdom, patience, and perseverance. One of the recurring themes in Redhorn's adventures involves his encounters with powers far greater than himself. He entered contests where defeat seemed inevitable, journeyed into territories where few dared to travel, and faced adversaries capable of reshaping the world around them. During these trials, Redhorn often endured suffering that left lasting marks upon him. Physical pain, exhaustion, and setbacks became part of his journey rather than obstacles that simply disappeared. The stories do not portray him as a hero who remained untouched by struggle. Instead, they present him as someone who carried the consequences of his experiences and continued forward despite them. As his adventures unfolded, Redhorn gradually came to understand that every challenge altered him. The wounds he received were not merely injuries. They became reminders of lessons learned through direct experience. Encounters with powerful spirits taught humility. Difficult journeys taught endurance. Failures taught caution. Victories taught responsibility. Each experience left an impression upon him, shaping the person he would become. The old storytellers recognized that growth rarely occurs through comfort alone. More often, it emerges through moments when individuals are pushed beyond what they previously believed possible. The people who heard these stories understood this lesson well. Life itself brought difficulties that could not always be avoided. Harsh winters, dangerous travel, illness, loss, and uncertainty were realities familiar to many communities. Redhorn's adventures reflected those realities in symbolic form. His wounds became symbols of the challenges every person faces while moving through life. Rather than hiding scars, the stories acknowledged them as evidence of survival and learning. For generations, Redhorn remained a figure whose strength came not from perfection, but from persistence. The trials he endured reshaped him, teaching him wisdom alongside courage. His stories suggest that pain does not always arrive to destroy purpose. Sometimes it refines purpose, revealing strengths that remain hidden until tested. The marks left by struggle become part of the larger journey, one that transforms ordinary experience into deeper understanding. In this way, Redhorn's adventures remind listeners that hardship can leave lasting impressions, but those impressions often become the very things that help guide a person toward their greatest growth. Story 4, Bhishma and the Bed of Arrows. Within the vast epic, Mahabharata, there were many warriors, kings, sages, and heroes whose lives shaped the destiny of entire kingdoms. Among them stands Bhishma, a figure remembered not only for his martial skill, but for his unwavering commitment to duty. His story spans generations, touching nearly every major event within the epic. Yet one of the most powerful chapters occurs near the end of his life, when the wounds he receives become the source of profound wisdom rather than defeat. Bhishma was born into extraordinary circumstances and possessed abilities that made him one of the greatest warriors of his age. Early in life, he made a solemn vow that would define his future. To ensure his father's happiness and preserve harmony within the royal family, he renounced his claim to the throne and pledged lifelong celibacy. The sacrifice was so immense that people began referring to him as Bhishma, meaning the one who made a terrible and awe-inspiring vow. From that day forward, duty became the guiding principle of his life. Years passed, kingdoms rose and fell, and political tension gradually intensified. Eventually, the conflict known as the Kurukshetra War erupted, drawing families, allies, and former companions into a devastating struggle. Though Bhishma possessed deep affection for many on both sides, loyalty to his obligations required him to fight for the Kauravas. The decision brought sorrow as well as responsibility, for he understood the tragic consequence that lay ahead. When the great battle began, Bhishma proved nearly unstoppable. Day after day, he led armies and displayed extraordinary skill upon the battlefield. Yet even the greatest warrior could not escape destiny forever. During a crucial phase of the war, his opponents discovered a strategy that would allow them to overcome him. Arrows rained upon the aging hero until his body was pierced countless times. Instead of falling completely to the ground, he came to rest upon a bed formed by the arrows themselves, suspended between earth and sky. The injury was immense, yet Bhishma did not immediately die. According to the epic, he possessed the ability to choose the moment of his departure from the world. As he lay upon the field, warriors, kings, and seekers gathered around him. What could have become merely a story of suffering transformed into something far greater. From his bed of arrows, Bhishma shared wisdom concerning leadership, ethics, responsibility, justice, and the duties that bind individuals to one another. His wounds became the setting for some of the epic's deepest teachings. Listeners remembered this part of the story because it revealed a profound truth. Pain and hardship can alter a person's life, but they can also deepen understanding. Bhishma's injuries do not erase his purpose. Instead, they reshape it. The warrior, who had spent his life demonstrating physical strength, ultimately became a teacher whose greatest contribution emerged through endurance and wisdom. His story reminds us that some wounds become turning points, transforming suffering into insight and leaving behind lessons that continue long after the pain itself has passed. Daily Thread for June 15th. The Wound. Every journey leaves its mark. Achilles carried within him a hidden vulnerability that no strength could erase. A reminder that even the greatest hero possesses places where fate may touch them. Tears surrendered his hand so that others might be protected, discovering that sacrifice often costs something real and lasting. Redhorn endured trials that left scars upon both body and spirit, learning that hardship reshapes those willing to continue forward. Bhishma lay upon a bed of arrows and transformed suffering into wisdom, proving that pain can become a teacher when met with courage rather than bitterness. Across continents and centuries, these stories return to a truth that many people spend their lives resisting. Wounds are not always interruptions of the journey. Sometimes they become part of the journey itself. The old storytellers understood that no life unfolds without disappointment, loss, failure, sacrifice, grief, or struggle. Yet they also understood that these experiences possess the power to change a person in meaningful ways. A scar is evidence that something painful occurred, but it is also evidence that survival occurred. The heroes remembered in these traditions are not celebrated because they remained untouched. They are remembered because they carried their wounds forward and allowed them to deepen their understanding of themselves and the world around them. What marks us forever does not always diminish us. Sometimes it reveals new purpose, greater compassion, stronger resilience, or wisdom that comfort alone could never provide. The wound may arrive unexpectedly, yet the ancient stories suggest that what matters most is not the injury itself, but the person who emerges from it, shaped by experience and continuing onward with a deeper understanding of what it means to be human.